Hello and welcome to Fox Sports Lab AFL for the start of Sir Doug Nicholls round. I'm Ben Dixon and joining me, the People's Champ. He just loves getting around people flat out. Jason Dunstall and the man who can now bench press his body weight, 60 kilos, Al Patton. Welcome, boys.
How are we going, Dicko?
Oh, I'm up and about today, as you can tell. Looking forward to this before we hit the bye rounds hard. Chief, the biggest thing right now is Indigenous round. How good are these jumpers that the players are designing?
They look outstanding, don't they? And this is where we see some real creativity come into them. It's actually good when players have the input and understand the stories they're telling through these jumpers. And I don't know about you, Al, but I'll watch the Sir Doug Nicholls round, and there'll be one or two jumpers I just fall in love with that are so much better than the others for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And yeah, you sort of think, well, maybe they could wear these every week, and then next year they come up with another brilliant one. So yeah, it's great part of the game, I think.
And speaking of one of the biggest Indigenous players we've ever seen in the best is Buddy Franklin. He's been the talking point all week. Chief, I'm going to go straight to you. They're talking about announce your retirement, celebrate him for the remaining part of the season. We find out that Buddy's not in the form he's in. Where do you see him right now?
I can't believe people are starting to knock Bud. We're talking about a guy in his 19th season who's not far off playing game number 350. He's not far off moving into number 4 on the all-time goals, and people want to knock him because he's not playing the way he did when he was mid-20s.
Yeah.
I mean, let's understand what we've got here. We've got one of the legends of the game that we get to enjoy for I don't know how much longer. But I'm going to savour every game. And yes, what does he average? 3 goals a game throughout his career. He's down to 1.2 goals. But the importance that he actually has for the Sydney Swans, particularly at the moment, if you've got McDonald and you've got a Marty out of the side, people are saying play him up the ground. Well, he's missed a heap of footy. He had an interrupted pre-season. They need him in the forward line. And it's not just what he's doing himself. It's the pressure that he takes off everyone else because all the attention's on Bud. If they could get a lift out of Isaac Heaney, it'd be a little bit of a load off Bud's shoulder, I reckon. And I mean, with all due respect to Hayden McLean, he's not going to carry the forward line either. So they desperately need him at the moment.
The fans have been spoiled, haven't they?
Yep.
A man who's been kicking, averaging 9 shots a goal a game for his whole career. Al, John Longmire, Chief just said it then, he needs to fire up forward or, lift that forward line because no one else is doing it. But do you see another role that John can play him in?
Well, I think at this stage of his career, that's probably going to be difficult. He has been Sydney's number 1 forward target inside 50 this year, but as you say, we have extremely high standards for him, and the stats don't look great on paper. He's averaging under 2 goals a game since his first season in 2005, which you would remember, and under 10 touches a game for his the first time ever in his career. So he's 5th at the moment on the Swans goal kicking with just 7 for the year, and even his accuracy is down on what it has been over his career. So maybe there's a bit of confidence there. John Longmire said he was crook last week and only just got up to play. So, but maybe this is a week he can play himself back into some form.
Against the Kangaroos, he'll get amongst them.
Well, against the Kangaroos, he did kick 13, as we mentioned. All right, let's go from one decorated player to the competition's most underrated players, Chief. Yep. As we look at it right now, Collingwood, well, they're just flying. But is there anyone in your little wheelhouse there of Collingwood that you see is underrated?
There is, absolutely there is. All the talk when we talk about key forwards, it's Carlton. We talk about Kerno Mackay, we talk about Cameron and Hawkins, Taylor Walker's playing well at Adelaide, Aaron Norton draws a lot of attention at the Bulldogs, but no one talks about Brodie Myercheck. Oh. This is a bloke they picked up at pick 22 in the rookie draft back in 2018. Cost nothing. Plays nearly every game, doesn't have key forwards alongside him. For most of the year, hasn't had Dan McStay for a number of games, hasn't had a resting ruckman with him. This is a guy that does the job every single week. Works up, comes back, gives them an outlet kick, pushes back with the ball, kicks goals for them. I think he's a star.
Yeah, doesn't get the pay packet of maybe some of his teammates, but he's been their leading goal kicker 4 years in a row, and his kicking for goal accuracy is 63%, which so we mentioned Buddy's at 39. So, yeah, when he gets his chances, he takes them more often than not.
Can't believe I'm going to say this, Al, but you've got an unsung hero and he's a defender at Richmond.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I just think he's started to get a little bit of notice this week with the job that he did on Jeremy Cameron last week. Nathan Broad, I'm talking about, held Jez at a 1 goal, which is his fewest in a game this year. And you just look at the Richmond results this year. The 4 games that Broad was out suspended, Richmond lost all of them.
Yep.
And when he's been playing, they've won 3 and had a draw. So Obviously he's very versatile, can play on talls and smalls, and the thing that the Tigers will be working hard on is that he's out of contract and he's a WA boy, so I think there'll be some interest in him.
And Brisbane, Chief, got a lot of stars, but Brandon Starcevic, the defender off half-back, you love what he's doing.
Well, he does a job on a good player every week, and whether it's a small or a mid, he can play on your Dustin Martins and these type of players. He can play on the dangerous small forwards. He can play taller than he has to play. I just love him because he's another one that does the job every week, and people don't talk about him enough.
All right, we're up and about. It's certainly exciting for Indigenous Week, but that's our look at Bud and some of the game's unsung heroes. Reckoning day has arrived for the Demons. They are 7-2 for the year, but have only played 2 of the top 8 sides. Chief, do you get a true read on this week against the Power on Friday night?
Yeah, looking forward to this one. So Port have won 6 in a row, D's have won 4 in a row. You've got 2 teams in the top 4 that are flying. It's a shame there's an injury involving Charlie Dixon, which has stopped his impact, I think, throughout the course of the season. We'd love him to be playing a more dominant role, but I reckon this is a real danger game for Melbourne. I think Port are playing really, really well, Al, aren't they?
Yeah, well, this is my pick for an upset of the round. I've gone with Port, which not with 100% confidence, but I think they are maybe going a bit better than maybe people realise. Like you say, 6 wins in a row. And a good stat, Melbourne has not scored over 100 points against Port since 2011.
But they do have a great record at the Adelaide Oval to go.
They do, and I'm with Al on this one. I've done Melbourne's game the last 2 weeks, and I reckon they're looking tired. So this is a chance for Port Adelaide. They're the outsider in this one. So do you expect it to be an arm wrestle, though, Al, or are you expecting Port to just go, right, I'm going to land the first blow and it's going to be right on your jaw, Melbourne?
Well, I think based on those defensive numbers, Port will try and lock it down. I think where the really interesting battle, which I suppose it is in many games, is right in the centre square. How's this for a stat? Last week, North Melbourne won the hitouts against Port 63-24. But Port won the centre clearances 18-5. So their midfield is going really well. Obviously, Melbourne's got some pretty good players in there. But last year against Port, Willem Drew did a job on Clayton Oliver, kept him to 19 disposals, which is his fewest for the year. So be looking to see if he gets that job again. And Zach Butters, I mentioned him last week, absolutely flying 6 games in a row, over 25 touches. So if he can get going and Connor Rosie can get going as well, I think Port's a red-hot chance.
Chief, what about Power? What sort of a start is it at home ground? Is it a 3-goal start, considering where Melbourne travel over there?
Well, hard to say, but as I mentioned before, Melbourne's got a great record at the Adelaide Oval, so no fears for them. I think Collingwood's the only team that's won more often than them from the games that they've played there. So they won't have any fears going over there, but they are getting a team in red-hot form, so looking forward to this one.
All right, we missed our place playing in the midfield. They don't man up these days, Al, so we expect the usual suspects to just fill their boots?
Well, that Willem Drew, Clayton Oliver matchup I think will be a big one, so we'll be watching that very closely when they walk up at the start of the game. If he's standing next to him, I think that's a good sign.
Christian Petrarca. Is he just cruising? Like, he's just doing whatever he pleases. It looks like he's going about 50% rat power.
No, he's one of the great players in the game, mate. Don't worry about that. He gets the job done all the time. He's a cracker and he'll get it done again here. All
right, this is a massive clash between 2 top 4 teams, and Al is going it alone here, tipping the Power. The Crows have turned up the heat this year, but they're going to need to fire on all cylinders in the chilly Ballarat on Saturday against the Bulldogs. Chief, this is going to be one of the great tests for the Crows against the Bulldogs. I know it's at Mars Stadium in Ballarat, minus whatever you want it to be, and long sleeves are plenty, but we've pumped them up all year, but this is probably their biggest test.
It's a great game, isn't it? Because they've got themselves back in the mix now, the Bulldogs, and they've got a terrific run home. So they're going to be favoured to be positioning themselves come September. But I think we're dealing with a different Adelaide Crows now. A team that plays a hard, contested brand of footy. Love the way they can hit the scoreboard. They're coming up against a really good defence in the Dogs, and they have won. In fact, they won last year in a tight one at Ballarat, so that holds no fears for them as well. So I'm really bullish about Adelaide, although I'm generally concerned about this. I am going for an upset with the Crows, but it's a game that could go either way.
I want to ask you, because both teams have a different profile, don't they? So it's a hard game to read, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the Crows, as we know, are a really exciting attacking team, and the Bulldogs' defence, this is where they really improved this year, which I think we sort of identified last year that was where they were perhaps falling down. So, it'll be a real good contrast this weekend. And the Crows averaging 30 points in first quarters over the past 5 rounds. So they've been flying out of the blocks. So we'll probably get a good indication early which way it might go.
Dreamtime at the G is one of the greatest games on the calendar. This is one you literally have to go at least once to obviously enjoy the spectacle. But the Bombers Can they break? And Brad Scott's in charge now. A 13-game losing streak against the Tigers, Chief.
Well, they've also lost their last 4 this season, so they're not in great form. They've been competitive against some good teams, though.
Yeah.
They're playing patches of football, so I don't think they've slipped back to where they've been the last few years, but they need to get their confidence back with a big win. Can they do it now? Well, gee, until last week, you would have said they'd be favoured to win this one. Now, all of a sudden, it's been flipped on its head. So I scratched my head a little with this one. I don't like it as a game from a tipping perspective.
Deep dive for me, Al. Tell us how they win.
Well, the Bombers, as you say, they've lost 4 in a row, but they're all against top 8 teams. So that run's maybe not as bad as it might look on paper. But, the Tigers seem to have their mojo back, and they do have the wood on the Bombers, it's fair to say, 13 in a row. The one player I'll be watching this week is Jack Merritt, has a fantastic record against Richmond. He's had 30-plus disposals in his past 5 against the Tigers. So he'd be one to look for this weekend.
All right, well, the panel is split again. Jason and myself are going with the Crows, but Al's tipping the Bulldogs, as he does, just try and creep away. And I am one out with the Bombers in the upset at the G against the Tigers.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Your chances are you're about to lose.
This could be the shock of the round. I've lost all my confidence, boys. I'm against the Blues this weekend. Chief, if they lose this against the Magpies, and it's more than likely, is their season cooked? Do you stick a fork in them after this game?
Hasn't your language changed?
Oh, it has a little bit, yeah.
Haven't you dropped off?
I can too.
You were so bullish about the Blues, and now it says, see you later. You've given them the raspberry. Oh, look, they are in trouble. They've got a tough patch of their draw coming up. They need to get some wins on the board, and it's hard to see it coming. Lost 4 of their last 5, up against a rampant Collingwood. And for me, Al, their lack of penetration with the ball. I mean, they win enough of the pill, but they just don't use it well enough. We keep talking about Kerno and Mackay, but they're not getting bang for buck.
Yeah, well, they're winning plenty of the footy, as you said. They're ranked 3rd for disposals a game, Carlton. The one to watch is Sam Walsh. He's now on a run of 27 games in a row of 25 or more disposals. And his last 2 against Collingwood, 35 and 39. Wow. So he doesn't mind playing the Pies. But, I mean, they had a couple of super close ones last year. Pies won by 4 and then obviously by 1 point in the final round. But, Dicko, do you think the Blues can get that close?
No. I think Collingwood will win by 40 plus. I really do. I just think once the floodgates open, it's just...
So you're now angry that they've let you down, aren't you?
I'm incredibly angry, yeah. But
It's personal.
Well, they're scoring 80 points a game. That's not going to win you games of footy, is it, with Mackay and Kerno? So I'm looking forward to Collingwood just turning it up on the Blues here. But Al, let's look at the Blues midfield. They are getting plenty of it, but they can't hit the scoreboard.
Yeah, it's that whole connection piece between what's happening, getting the ball to. I mean, Harry Mackay is getting some shots, but his goal kicking's way off. So how do you fix those things? I'm glad I'm not in Michael Voss's shoes. It'd be pretty tough. One guy who's having a better season, this stat caught me a little bit by surprise. Matt Owies averaging over 2 goals a game. So he's doing his job for him.
The Saints are a fascinating watch this Sunday against the Giants, Al. Ross Lyon called it a mulligan last week. Do you see them getting up this week?
They weren't great last week, but I think we'll know a lot more after this weekend. They've got a pretty good run home, so if they can win against the Giants, then you'd probably just forget about what happened over in Adelaide. And Giants don't have a great record. They're not travelling too well. They've lost their last 14 against teams in the top 8, so I think we can back the Saints in. Tom Green, though, having a fantastic season, 30-plus disposals in his past 6.
And Max King back in, Chief. Last year, 52 goals. He's massive for them.
It's great to see him back. They're building a really impressive forward line, the Saints, when you put Philippou and Caminiti and Mitch Owens and all these sort of players together. There's going to be a lot to look forward to in the future. I don't know how impressive he's going to be first up from a spell. We'll see. But if he's back for the Saints is good, what about Toby Green back for the Giants? That is a massive, massive inclusion because he's the one that inspires them and kicks the goals.
Yeah, well, exactly. Ticks all the boxes down there. And Jesse Hogan's actually having a really good year too. I think he missed out 1 game, but he's kicked at least 2+ every other week.
All right, well, I'm tipping another upset here, the Giants to beat the Saints, but I have to say I'm off the Blues and joining you two in tipping the Magpies. It's time to look at the remaining games, Chief. You stemmed the bleeding, but you're not catching it now, let's be honest.
Well, let's just clarify things. I'm looking at you in the rearview mirror. You are done and dusted, gone. You are yesterday's news. I'm now trying to reel Al in. It is officially a 2-horse race.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing Hail Mary, so I'll just keep myself to the side. All right, let's look at the 3 games to finish off round 10. Al, Q Clash, big one, because the Suns are much improved, but are they going to beat the Lions?
Well, yeah, this is probably their best chance they've had in a long time to have a crack at Brisbane. It's 8 in a row Brisbane wins in Q Clashes, and the Suns are going pretty nicely, but Brisbane also travelling extremely well. So it's going to be tough. Charlie Cameron, they've got to try and find a match-up for him because he just dominates these games every year. He averages 2.5 goals against Gold Coast, and he's kicked 3 or more in his past 4 against them, and he's only ever gone goalless against the Suns once, and that was in 2014.
The trouble is they need a heap of matchups down back because what Brisbane are getting is a great spread of goal kickers through Danaher, through Hipwood, through Gunston, through Cameron, as you say. They're all getting amongst it. But at least they've got Rowell and Anderson absolutely flying again in the middle of the ground. You get Ben King back in a little bit of form. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think the Suns have improved, but it's still bullish about the Lions.
Yeah, well, you can see that I've jumped off the Blue Baggers and I was off the Lions. Now I'm on the Lions.
Don't you dare weigh us down.
No, I'm jumping on the Lions. Their home and away record, like that has been the real deal for me, how they've won at home and away. Like that was the clincher for me. All right, Chief. Many are calling the Hawks-Eagles match at Launceston the Harley Reid Cup. Now, if you hear closely, there's a chant that says concede for Reid. But this is, I mean, we joke about it in a way. They're both down the bottom, 17th and 18th. But where's the mindset for a round 1 draft pick?
We're all dumber now for having listened to you say that. Suggesting that these teams would deliberately tank a game.
They're not deliberately.
You've got 2 teams desperate for a win. And I mean desperate. There are competitive juices amongst the players and all they want to do is get another win. No one likes sitting on the bottom of the table, Dicko. And for you to suggest that, that is tantamount to treason, my friend. I just think the home ground advantage here. Been a long time since they've been down there. West Coast, almost, I think it's 9 years, isn't it?
Yeah, well, their overall record in Launceston is 2 wins and 5 losses. Their last win was in 2005 in Launceston, but they haven't played there since 2014. Yeah. So maybe you don't want to read too much into that.
Well, that's a tongue-in-cheek about the Harley Reid. But just quickly, give us a rundown on Harley Reid because everyone's talking about him, but no one's seen a lot.
Yeah, well, the recruiters are absolutely red hot on this guy. He's been the tip for the number 1 draft pick this year since pretty much the start of last year. He was All-Australian last year as an underager, in the same team as Will Ashcroft and these guys. And he's that sort of explosive midfielder, Dustin Martin, Christian Petrarca type that everybody loves. So can see why clubs are keen on him.
So it's tongue-in-cheek and you've diverted the whole show to talking about it.
I just want to hear more about him. All right. Let's have a look at the Dockers and the Cats in Perth on Saturday, Chief. This will give us an incredible read on Justin Longmuir in terms of have they found their mojo?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. They've had a couple of good wins. Last week was a good win too, but are they where they were last year? I'm still not convinced yet, but they get to take on the Cats, and the Cats will be savage because that was
embarrassing.
It was an uncharacteristic performance last week. They looked listless, a little bit like they did over the first 3 rounds, Al. I don't know how you saw it, but I think they'll be fired up to try and turn this around. And whilst the home ground advantage counts for something, it's not enough for me to sway it.
Well, the Cats obviously last week were severely undermanned. I think they had 9 grand final players missing. They'll get a few back this week. So Brad Close is back from suspension. Tyson Stengel's available. Jack Henry will come in for his first game of the year. So that'll bolster them. And they did look off last week. Tom Hawkins loves going to Perth. He won't be worried about it. He's kicked 3 goals or more in his past 3 there against the Dockers. So Tom Stewart had 40 touches against them last year. So I think, Cats the bounce back for me.
What about Angus Brayshaw? Is he having some sort of a year? Andrew Brayshaw. Is he having some sort of a year?
His last 3 weeks have been much better. So he was a little bit slow to start the year, but he's had 30 or more touches the last 3 games. So he's starting to really find some groove, I think.
Let's look at the full round of tips. And, Chief, this is a big chance for us to start making a move. Al is against us in tipping the Power to beat the Demons, and we can make up even more ground if the Crows win because Al is with the Bulldogs. Then it gets interesting. I am being bold and tipping the Bombers and the Giants, but Sunday night I have a chance to make up 4 on Al. Can you believe it? That's our show for this weekend in Sir Doug Nicholls' round. Thanks very much for your efforts today. Jason and Al, outstanding. You're in the votes, let's be honest. 3, 2, 1. So great work, everyone. Make sure you subscribe below and follow us on socials. We'll be back next week for Fox Sports Lab AFL.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Your chances are you're about to lose.